Now let's look at the narrative game structures. What are you talking about? We're talking about linear, nonlinear, or how to tell a story with choice in a game. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, how much influence will your player have on the game world? The term we use for that is agency. How much license do you give them to kill inside your game? For instance, yeah, sure, you can go around killing the bad guys, but do you also let them kill the mentor in the beginning that's telling them how to play the game, or to kill Q, who's giving them all the great, devices and stuff, right? How much do you allow your players to influence the game world? That's agency. The amount of influence a player's actions have on the game world is called agency. Now, this is, easy way to remember it. Just imagine that James Bond 007 secret agent with that license to kill. How many people can he kill? Can he even, if he's trying to save the princess, is he able to kill the princess in the end? Yeah? Situations that give autonomy as opposed to taking it away also have a similar link to motivation. Now, studies on choice have found that increasing a participant's options and choices increases their intrinsic motivation. So let's have a look at some of these different game structures or interactive narrative structures. What we're talking about here is how we go through each of the different plot points. We have here, for instance, a linear progression. It goes from A, B, C to D. And we see that this linear progression is pretty boring. Now, some games will impose a linear order of events on the player. The challenges must be done in a fixed order. Now, the good side of this is it's easy to outline the plot of the game. Designers know what a player has done, what a player has seen at any given moment of the game. However, the cons are that the players can feel it's restricting the freedom inside the game. Another different approach is something called the fold-back structure. Now, this fold-back structure, we see that even though the character is given multiple choices on how to proceed, eventually all those choices will lead to the exact same plot points. Now, this gives the idea or a bit more of a feeling of choice for the player, but really it doesn't give them any agency at all. So we see here that the player is presented with choices, but they eventually lead to the same node. The pros of this are that, it gives the impression of a choice, and it still maintains that strict plot structure. However, of course, the cons is that the player feels that the choices don't really matter. It doesn't matter what I choose on A because I'll get to D in the end. Moving on, we have a different approach to game structures called branching. Now, here we give our players choices, and depending on those choices, each of the plot endings will be different depending on the choices the player takes throughout the game. Now, this is a really great example of how we can make a game that really gives every choice a player could want. Ideally, every player choice should lead to a different state in the end. Now, there are some cons to this. First of all, it is very expensive to develop. I mean, each one of these is animation, scenes, worlds, voiceover, actors, all kinds of stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on all the different choices that you have, compounded x 2, 3, 4 times, divisible by infinity, right? It can be very expensive. And players only see a fraction of the content. They may only play this bit, and they've literally missed 75% of the game. On the other hand, it really gives genuine choice to the players, and it gives them plenty of content to go through and explore. Oh, replay it again, and to try and go and find all the different game endings. Now, there is a middle ground between the fold-back structure, the linear structure, and this branching structure. And what we call it is game structures. We have a branching with dead ends. So you'll see that, in this, players may take a number of choices, but one of those choices or multiple choices will end the game. It ends. Sorry, it's come to a dead end. Now, this solution does create dead ends, which has its pros and cons as well. The pros, of course, are it really does limit the complexity of a simple branching structure, where you have for each one of these endings, you also have to have a whole, animation, cutscene, or what have you. One of the cons, of course, of this is that players often they have to, turn back in order to win the game. So it's like, I went here, I died. All right, let me try this way. I died, and let me try this way. Yeah, so that's kind of the turn back happening. Now there is another version that we can use, and it's kind of like the folding structure we looked at before, and this is called convexity. So what we do is we eventually branch out, and then it branches back into a common single narrative. And this journey or this path, even though multiple, will always lead the same. As they say, all roads in Europe lead to Rome, right? Now, there's a lot of game choice in this type of structure. But in the end, you go to that single focus point or the end of the level. Now, the pros of this, of course, are that there's this genuine choice, right? There's a genuine path that the players have taken that's unique. There's room for all kinds of discovery and expression, during that journey. And it also limits the complexity of all that plot control. I mean, you can do that not too hard compared to all the other branching structures. Now, of course, there are a few cons. One of the first cons is that, still much content the players probably won't see because they have to go through every single journey, modification, choice that is in there, right? So they're only going to see a percentage of the game. And it is more expensive to produce than your typical linear structure. So there we have it. There we have different interactive narrative structures, from linear progression to fold back to branching with dead ends, and convexity, right? What I want you to do is I want you to take a puzzle. I made a little puzzle to see if you can figure out these different structures and branching dead ends. So you can use the QR code here, or you can use the link that's also down below. And I want you to identify the different types of game structures, right? And see if you can figure out the puzzle and remember what they are.